Thomas James steps onto alien soil, his breath catching as the increased gravity of Chalnotha pulls at his limbs. The seasoned diplomat's mind races, processing the implications of what he's just been told. One night with the Chalnoth Queen Asha, a welcome gift that could make or break Earth's first interstellar alliance. Gorn, the Chalnoth chief of protocol, towers over Thomas. His bioluminescent skin pulses with excitement as he explains the honor bestowed upon the human ambassador. Thomas nods, keenly aware that refusing would be a catastrophic insult to their hosts. The bioorganic structures of the Chalnoth capital loom around them, pulsing and shifting in rhythm with some unseen force. Thomas marvels at the stark contrast to Earth's rigid architecture. Each step is a challenge as he acclimates to the 1.2 Earth gravity, his muscles straining against the extra weight. As they approach the royal palace, Gorn briefs Thomas on Chalnoth physiology. Humanoid, yet distinctly alien with their glowing skin and retractable claws. The diplomat files away each detail, knowing any misstep could lead to interstellar conflict. Senior advisor Marcus Chen falls into step beside Thomas, his face etched with concern. Remember, Ambassador, the Chalnoth are unpredictable. Queen Asha rules with an iron fist. This night could determine humanity's standing in the galactic community for generations. Thomas nods, the weight of his responsibility settling on his shoulders. He recalls the briefings about the Chalnoth, a warrior race valuing strength and cunning above all else. As they near the Queen's chambers, he formulates strategies, acutely aware that his actions will echo across the stars. The ornate throne room doors loom before them, intricate patterns seeming to writhe and shift. Thomas takes a deep breath, steeling himself for what lies ahead. The doors swing open. Queen Asha stands at the far end of the chamber, her 8-foot frame dominating the space. Iridescent scales shimmer across her skin, and piercing silver eyes lock onto Thomas. He feels the predatory interest in her gaze, a mixture of curiosity and something else he can't quite name. Thomas steps forward, his mind racing. This is it. The moment that could secure Earth's place among the stars or plunge them into interstellar war. As he approaches the alien queen, he knows that every word, every action, every breath could tip the scales of human-alien relations. The fate of two worlds rests on this one night, and Thomas James, Earth's first ambassador to the Chalnoth, is determined not to let humanity down. Queen Asha's silver eyes bore into Thomas as he approached, his footsteps echoing in the vast throne room. With a graceful motion, she extended a hand adorned with iridescent scales. Ambassador Thomas James. Her voice resonated, a melodic purr that sent shivers down his spine. We welcome you to our private chambers. Thomas bowed, acutely aware of the weight of the moment. As he straightened, the Queen's attendants silently filed out, leaving them alone. The ornate doors closed with a soft thud, sealing their fate. Asha led Thomas through a hidden passage, emerging into a room that took his breath away. Bioluminescent flora cast an otherworldly glow, painting the walls in soft hues of blue and purple. The increased gravity seemed to heighten his senses, making every step deliberate and meaningful. Your world fascinates us, Ambassador, Asha said, gesturing for Thomas to sit on a living chair that molded to his form. Tell us of Earth's customs. Thomas cleared his throat, attempting to steer the conversation towards diplomatic matters. Your Majesty, I believe our two worlds have much to offer each other. Earth's technology... Asha's laugh interrupted him, a sound like chiming crystals. Technology we have in abundance, Thomas. What intrigues us is... you. Her eyes roamed over his form, curiosity evident in her gaze. Caught off guard, Thomas shifted in his seat. Me, Your Majesty? Indeed, your species is so different from ours. Asha moved closer, her bioluminescent skin pulsing with interest. Tell us of human mating rituals. How do your people choose partners? Thomas felt heat rise to his cheeks, his diplomatic training ill-equipped for such personal inquiries. Well, Your Majesty, it varies greatly among cultures and individuals. Some seek emotional connections, others physical compatibility. Asha nodded, her hand reaching out to touch Thomas's arm. Her skin was cool and smooth, sending a jolt through his body. And what of pleasure, Thomas? How do humans experience it? He swallowed hard, acutely aware of the Queen's proximity. It's a complex interplay of physical and emotional responses, Your Majesty. Asha's skin shifted to a deep purple, her eyes darkening. Show us, she whispered, her face inches from his. Thomas hesitated for a moment, duty warring with desire. Then, driven by an impulse he couldn't explain, he leaned forward and kissed her. The contact was electric, alien yet familiar. Asha's skin flared with brilliant colors, her surprise evident. As the night progressed, Thomas found himself caught in a whirlwind of sensation and discovery. Despite their physiological differences, their bodies seemed to fit together perfectly. Each touch, each caress was a revelation, bridging the gap between their species in ways Thomas had never imagined possible. In the aftermath, as they lay entwined on a bed of soft, living tissue, Asha's expression grew serious. Thomas, there is something you must know. He propped himself up on an elbow, concern creasing his brow. What is it, Your Majesty? This night was more than a simple welcome, she said, her skin pulsing with slow, steady waves of blue. It was a test, one of utmost importance to my people. Thomas's mind raced, processing the implications. A test? Of what? Asha sat up, her regal bearing returning despite their intimate setting. The Chalnoth face a crisis, Thomas. Our genetic diversity is waning. We sought to determine if humans might be compatible, if your species could help revitalize ours. The weight of her words hit Thomas like a physical blow. He had unknowingly participated in a crucial experiment, one that could shape the future of both their species. Before he could formulate a response, a chime echoed through the chamber. Asha rose, her skin shifting to a formal pattern of greens and golds. Dawn approaches. You must return to your delegation. In a daze, Thomas dressed and allowed himself to be escorted back to the Earth delegation's quarters. His mind whirled with the night's revelations, each step under the increased gravity, a reminder of how far from home he truly was. As he approached their assigned living space, he saw Senior Advisor Marcus Chen waiting outside, his face a mask of concern and curiosity. Ambassador, Marcus said, his voice low and urgent, word of your encounter with the Queen has spread through the Chalnoth High Command. Their military leaders are requesting a private audience with you. Thomas nodded, still processing the magnitude of what had transpired. When? This afternoon, Marcus replied. But there's more. We've received an urgent communication from Earth. Thomas's fatigue evaporated, replaced by a surge of adrenaline. What is it? Marcus glanced around, ensuring they were alone. Our scientists have detected unusual energy readings coming from Chalnotha's core. They're intensifying, and we don't know why. We need you to gather information without raising suspicion. Thomas closed his eyes for a moment, the complexities of his position threatening to overwhelm him. When he opened them, his purpose was set. Understood. I'll prepare for the meeting with the military leaders. Perhaps I can use that opportunity to learn more about these energy readings. As Marcus nodded and turned to leave, Thomas entered his quarters. He had mere hours to prepare for a meeting that could determine the fate of two worlds. And somewhere, deep beneath the alien soil of Chalnotha, an unknown power was growing. Thomas barely had time to collect his thoughts before he found himself ushered into a high-ceilinged chamber, face to face with the imposing figures of the Chalnoth military leadership. General Krasnok, a behemoth even by Chalnoth standards, dominated the room. His battle-scarred scales shifted in hues of deep crimson and obsidian, a living testament to countless conflicts. Ambassador James, Krasnok's voice rumbled, each word carrying the weight of urgency. We appreciate your willingness to meet on such short notice. Thomas nodded, acutely aware of the tension permeating the air. Of course, General. I understand the gravity of the situation. Krasnok's eyes narrowed, studying Thomas with predatory intensity. Then, you are aware of our predicament? I believe I've been made aware of certain aspects, Thomas replied carefully, recalling his conversation with Queen Asha. But I'd appreciate hearing it directly from you. The general's scales rippled, a cascade of colors betraying a mix of emotions. Very well. Ambassador, the Chalnoth face extinction. A genetic defect is causing widespread infertility among our people. Our scientists believe human DNA may hold the key to our survival. Thomas absorbed the information, his mind racing. The implications were staggering, far beyond what he had initially understood. He took a deep breath, feeling the increased gravity of Chalnotha pulling at his lungs. General, this is indeed a dire situation, Thomas said, choosing his words carefully. If I may, I'd like to propose a solution that could benefit both our species. Krasnok leaned forward, his interest piqued. Go on. A joint human Chalnoth research initiative, Thomas explained. We could establish a scientific outpost here on Chalnotha, staffed by human geneticists working alongside your own scientists. Together, we might find a solution to this crisis. The chamber erupted in a flurry of bioluminescent flashes as the Chalnoth leaders communicated silently among themselves. Thomas waited, heart pounding, aware that this moment could shape the future of both their species. Finally, Krasnok spoke. Your proposal has merit, Ambassador. We are willing to... His words were cut short by a piercing alarm that reverberated through the complex. The floor beneath them shuddered, and Thomas stumbled, caught off guard by the sudden tremor. What's happening? He shouted over the din. Before anyone could answer, the doors burst open and Queen Asha strode in, her skin pulsing with rapid waves of anxious blue. The energy readings from the planet's core, she announced, her voice tight with concern. They've spiked dramatically. We're experiencing tremors across the entire planet. Thomas's mind flashed to the briefing he'd received from Marcus. The unusual energy readings detected by Earth scientists. This had to be connected. Queen Asha's eyes met Thomas's, and he saw a flicker of something beyond mere diplomatic courtesy. She took a deep breath and continued. There's something you all need to know. Beneath Chalnotha's surface lies an ancient alien artifact. We've long believed it to be dormant, but now it's awakened. The room fell silent, the implications of her words sinking in. Thomas stepped forward, his diplomatic training kicking into high gear. Your Majesty, esteemed leaders, he began, his voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around them. This situation clearly affects both our species. I propose a joint expedition to investigate this artifact. As Earth's representative, I volunteer to lead this mission alongside your own people. Queen Asha's skin shimmered with surprise and admiration. Ambassador, your bravery is commendable. I insist on joining this expedition myself. A chorus of protests erupted from her advisors, but Asha silenced them with a regal wave of her hand. My decision is final. As the Chalnoth leaders conferred, Thomas felt his communicator vibrate. He discreetly checked the message. It was from Earth. The UN Security Council had authorized a small military contingent to accompany the research team. Captain Sarah Chen, an experienced soldier with a background in xenoarchaeology, would lead the human security detail. Thomas relayed this information to the Chalnoth leaders, watching carefully for their reaction. General Krasnok's scales darkened, but he nodded in acceptance. Very well, Krasnok growled. We will assemble a team of our finest warriors and scientists to accompany you. As preparations for the expedition began in earnest, the tremors intensified. Reports of structural damage and casualties in Chalnoth cities began to pour in, underscoring the urgency of their mission. In the midst of the frenzied activity, Queen Asha pulled Thomas aside. Her bioluminescent skin pulsed with a soft, intimate glow that he was beginning to recognize. Thomas, she said softly, her silver eyes searching his face. I need you to know, our night together, it wasn't just about diplomacy or scientific curiosity. I've developed genuine feelings for you. Thomas felt his breath catch. The admission both thrilled and terrified him, adding a new layer of complexity to an already fraught situation. Before he could respond, Captain Sarah Chen arrived with her team. The atmosphere instantly became charged as the human soldiers eyed the towering Chalnoth warriors with barely concealed suspicion. Thomas steeled himself, knowing that his next actions would be crucial. He stepped forward, placing himself between the two groups. We stand at a pivotal moment, he addressed them all. The fate of both our species may well rest on the success of this mission. We must set aside our differences and work together. The challenges we face beneath the surface of this planet will require all of our combined skills and strengths. As Thomas spoke, he saw the tension begin to ease. Queen Asha and General Krasnok moved to stand beside him, presenting a united front. The expedition team boarded the advanced Chalnoth tunneling vehicles, a mix of humans and aliens, scientists and warriors. As they began their descent into the depths of Chalnotha, Thomas felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. The further they descended, the stronger the energy readings became. Strange phenomena began to manifest around them. Gravity fluctuated wildly, electromagnetic disturbances played havoc with their equipment, and fleeting holographic images of an unknown civilization flickered at the edge of their vision. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity of descent, they reached their destination. The artifact loomed before them, a massive structure that defied comprehension. Its surface pulsated with intricate, ever-changing symbols that seemed to dance and shift as they watched. Thomas stepped forward, his heart pounding. As he gazed upon the alien construct, he knew that whatever happened next would change the course of history for both humans and Chalnoth. The true nature of their mission was about to unfold, and the fate of two worlds hung in the balance. Balance. The air crackled with tension as Thomas took a cautious step toward the pulsating artifact. Suddenly, the ground beneath them lurched violently. The cavern walls shuddered, sending cascades of dust and debris raining down. Thomas stumbled, nearly losing his footing on the trembling floor. "Everyone, brace yourselves!" he shouted, his voice barely audible above the deafening rumble. Queen Asha's skin flashed with urgent patterns of red and orange. "The energy readings are off the charts," she called out, her silver eyes wide with alarm. Before anyone could react further, the artifact erupted in a blinding flash of light. Thomas instinctively threw his arm up to shield his eyes, the world around him dissolving into a sea of white. When the light faded, Thomas blinked rapidly, trying to clear the spots from his vision. As his sight returned, he realized with a jolt that the scene had changed dramatically. Gone were the cavernous walls and the rest of the expedition team. Instead, he found himself in a smaller, enclosed chamber, its walls smooth and shimmering with an otherworldly iridescence. "Your Majesty?" Thomas called out, his voice echoing in the strange space. "Is anyone there?" "I'm here, Thomas," came Asha's reply from behind him. He turned to see the Chalnoth Queen, her bioluminescent skin pulsing with a mix of confusion and curiosity. They were alone in this new chamber, separated from the rest of their team. "What happened? Where are we?" Thomas asked, scanning their surroundings. Asha moved closer, her eyes fixed on something behind him. "I believe we've been transported deeper into the artifact," she said. "And look at this." Thomas followed her gaze to a control panel embedded in the wall. Its surface was covered in intricate alien symbols that seemed to shift and change as they watched. As they approached the panel, the air around them shimmered. Holographic projections materialized, filling the chamber with ghostly images of beings unlike any Thomas had ever seen. Tall, ethereal creatures with multiple limbs and eyes that glowed with ancient wisdom. "Greetings, children of the stars," a voice resonated in their minds, seemingly coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. "We are the progenitors, the seeders of life throughout the galaxy." Thomas and Asha stood transfixed as the holographic beings began to share their story. The progenitors, they learned, had traveled the cosmos, planting the seeds of life on countless worlds, including Earth and Chalnotha. "This artifact," the voice continued, "is a repository of genetic knowledge and a tool for guiding evolution. It has awakened because two compatible species have formed a bond strong enough to trigger its activation." Thomas and Asha exchanged a meaningful glance, the implications of their intimate encounter taking on a whole new significance. "Your union," the progenitor's voice echoed, "has set in motion events that will shape the future of both your peoples." As the holographic history unfolded before them, Thomas's mind raced. The artifact held the key to solving the Chalnoth's genetic crisis, but it also represented a monumental shift in humanity's understanding of its place in the universe. Outside the hidden chamber, chaos reigned. The initial tremors had intensified, causing sections of the cavern to collapse. General Krasnok's voice boomed over the din, coordinating with Captain Sarah Chen to stabilize the area. "We need to shore up that western wall," Sarah shouted, directing her team to reinforce a crumbling section of rock. Krasnok nodded, his scales shifting to a determined pattern of deep blue and silver. "Chalnoth warriors, assist the humans. We must find the ambassador and her majesty." As the two species worked together, the human scientists and Chalnoth experts huddled around their equipment, frantically trying to decipher the energy patterns emanating from the artifact. Back in the hidden chamber, Thomas and Asha absorbed the wealth of information presented to them. The holographic progenitors explained the intricacies of the artifact's genetic manipulation capabilities. "The solution to the Chalnoth's infertility lies within this device," the voice explained. "By combining human and Chalnoth DNA, a cure can be synthesized." Asha's skin pulsed with hope, but Thomas detected a note of hesitation in the progenitor's tone. "What's the catch?" he asked, bracing himself for the answer. The chamber fell silent for a moment before the voice responded. "The process requires a significant contribution from both species. One of you must merge with the artifact to initiate the genetic recombination sequence." Thomas felt his heart sink as he processed the implications. He turned to Asha, seeing the same mix of emotions reflected in her silver eyes. Before they could discuss their options, a low rumble shook the chamber. The holographic images flickered, and a new set of projections appeared, showing the cavern outside. Their team was in danger, struggling against collapsing rock and awakening security measures. "We must act quickly," Asha said, her voice filled with tenacity. "My people need this cure, and our teams need our help." Thomas nodded, his mind racing to find a solution that wouldn't require either of them to sacrifice themselves entirely. As if sensing their dilemma, the artifact itself intervened. A new holographic message appeared, explaining that a full merger wasn't necessary. Instead, the artifact required genetic samples from both Thomas and Asha to synthesize the cure. However, the process would temporarily fuse their consciousness, allowing them to experience each other's memories and emotions. Thomas and Asha locked eyes, a silent understanding passing between them. This intimate mental connection would forever change their relationship and their understanding of each other's species. "Are you ready for this?" Thomas asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Asha's skin shimmered with a soft, affectionate glow. "With you, Thomas, I'm ready for anything." They stepped into separate pods that had emerged from the chamber walls. As the genetic extraction began, Thomas felt a strange sensation wash over him. His mind expanded, intertwining with Asha's in a dance of memories and emotions. He saw flashes of her childhood on Chalnotha, felt the weight of her responsibilities as queen, and understood the deep love she held for her people. In turn, he knew she was experiencing his life on Earth, his journey to becoming a diplomat, and the wonder he felt upon first encountering alien life. As their minds melded, Thomas and Asha gained a profound understanding of each other and their respective cultures. The bond between them deepened, transcending physical attraction and political alliance. Outside, the situation was growing dire. General Krasnok and Captain Chen had managed to establish a tenuous truce with the artifact's awakened guardians, but the cavern's stability was rapidly deteriorating. Just as hope began to fade, the artifact's energy signature changed. The violent tremors subsided, replaced by a gentle hum that resonated through the complex. The automated defenses powered down, and the cave-ins ceased. Inside the hidden chamber, the genetic synthesis neared completion. Thomas and Asha emerged from their pods, forever changed by their shared experience. They carried with them not only the cure for the Chalnoth's genetic crisis, but also a newfound understanding that would shape the future of human-Chalnoth relations. As the artifact powered down, its purpose fulfilled, Thomas and Asha prepared to rejoin their teams. They knew that the challenges ahead would be numerous, but they faced them with a unity born from their unprecedented connection. The hidden chamber's door slid open, revealing the awestruck faces of their expedition members. Thomas stepped forward, Asha by his side, ready to bridge the gap between their species and usher in a new era of cooperation and discovery. understanding, and usher in a new era of cooperation and mutual growth. As Thomas and Queen Asha stepped out of the hidden chamber, they were met with a mix of relief and awe from their expedition members. The cavern, which had been on the brink of collapse just moments ago, now hummed with a peaceful energy. General Krasnok was the first to approach, his scales shifting to a pattern of deep blue respect. "Your Majesty, Ambassador James, we feared the worst. What happened in there?" Thomas glanced at Asha, feeling a lingering echo of her thoughts in his mind. She nodded, encouraging him to speak. "We've obtained the cure for the Chalnoth genetic crisis," Thomas announced, his voice steady despite the weight of the revelation. "But more than that, we've discovered the true purpose of this artifact and its creators." Captain Sarah Chen stepped forward, her eyes wide with curiosity. "And the tremors? The defense systems?" "Deactivated," Asha replied, her skin pulsing with calm, reassuring colors. "The artifact recognized us as worthy inheritors of its knowledge. It's safe now." As the team gathered their equipment and prepared for the ascent, Thomas and Asha briefed them on their experience within the chamber. They explained the progenitors, the genetic synthesis, and the unprecedented mental connection they had shared. The journey back to the surface was filled with a mix of excitement and trepidation. Scientists from both species huddled around data tablets, poring over the information extracted from the artifact. Thomas and Asha led the way, their steps in sync, occasionally pausing as shared memories flickered between them. During one such moment, Thomas stumbled, overwhelmed by a vivid recollection of Asha's first day as queen. He felt the weight of the crown, the expectations of an entire species resting on her shoulders. Asha steadied him, her touch sending a ripple of understanding between them. "It's disorienting, isn't it?" she said softly. "To carry another's life within your own." Thomas nodded, marveling at the depth of their connection. "It's incredible, but it complicates things. My role as a diplomat has been enhanced," Asha finished his thought. "You understand us now in a way no outsider ever has." As they neared the surface, the rumble of unrest reached their ears. The recent tremors had sent shockwaves of panic through the Chalnoth cities. Emerging from the tunnel, Thomas and Asha were confronted with a scene of chaos. Chalnoth citizens crowded the streets, their skin flashing with patterns of fear and confusion. Warriors stood at attention, unsure whether to expect an attack or a natural disaster. Without hesitation, Thomas and Asha moved as one to address the crowd. Asha's voice rang out, clear and commanding, while Thomas projected a sense of calm and reassurance he had gleaned from her memories. "People of Chalnotha," Asha began, her skin glowing with soothing patterns. "The tremors you felt were not a sign of danger, but of hope." Thomas continued seamlessly, his words carrying the weight of newfound understanding. "We have discovered the key to solving the genetic crisis that has plagued your people. The artifact deep beneath our feet holds the cure." Their synchronized speech had an immediate effect. The crowd's agitation began to subside, replaced by a ripple of cautious optimism. As they explained the situation, simplifying the complex genetic science into understandable terms, Thomas noticed senior advisor Marcus Chen watching from the sidelines. The older man's expression was a mix of admiration and concern. Once the crowd had dispersed, Marcus approached Thomas. "That was an impressive display, Ambassador," he said, his tone measured. "But I must express some concerns about your closeness with Queen Asha." Thomas straightened, feeling a flash of defensiveness that he wasn't entirely sure originated from him or Asha. "I understand your concerns, Marcus, but I assure you, this connection has only enhanced my ability to foster positive relations between our species." Before Marcus could respond, a group of Chalnoth scientists approached, led by a female whose scales shimmered with excitement. "Your Majesty, Ambassador," she said, bowing slightly, "we've begun preliminary tests on the cure. The results are promising." The news spread quickly, igniting a spark of hope among the Chalnoth. Thomas could feel the ripple of joy through his lingering connection with Asha. As the day progressed, Thomas found himself navigating a complex web of diplomacy. General Krasnok, impressed by the humans' contributions, proposed a formal military alliance between Earth and Chalnotha. The suggestion sent a wave of tension through both camps. Drawing on his diplomatic skills and newfound insights, Thomas proposed an alternative. Perhaps we should start with a joint scientific outpost, he suggested. We can study the artifact, refine the cure, and learn from each other without the complications of a military alliance. The compromise seemed to satisfy both sides, but Thomas could sense the undercurrents of unease. Some of the Chalnoth High Command viewed Asha's openness to collaboration as a weakness. Meanwhile, Earth's representatives worried about sharing advanced technology with a species they barely understood. As night fell on Chalnotha, Thomas stood on a balcony overlooking the capital city. He felt Asha's presence before she spoke, their shared consciousness creating a unique awareness. "You handled that well today," she said, joining him at the railing. "But I fear we've only begun to face the challenges ahead." Thomas nodded, his mind already racing with potential scenarios. "Your people's conservative factions won't easily accept such radical changes, and my superiors on Earth will have their own concerns about this alliance." Asha's skin shimmered with a pattern Thomas now recognized as commitment. "Then we must show them the benefits of our cooperation. Starting tomorrow, we'll—" She was cut off by an urgent knock at the door. A Chalnoth messenger entered, his scales pulsing with alarm. "Your Majesty, Ambassador," he said, bowing quickly. "We've detected a signal from the artifact. It's broadcasting into deep space, and our long-range sensors have picked up a response from a distant star system." Thomas and Asha exchanged a look, their shared consciousness allowing for a rapid, unspoken exchange of thoughts and strategies. The simple diplomatic mission had evolved into something far more complex, with implications that reached beyond their two worlds and into the stars. As they hurried to the command center to assess this new development, Thomas couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the precipice of a new era, one that would challenge everything they thought they knew about their place in the universe. Thomas and Asha rushed to the command center, their minds synchronizing strategies as they moved. Upon arrival, they found a bustling scene of human and Chalnoth scientists working side by side, their focus solely on the mysterious signal. "Report," Asha commanded, her scales shimmering with a mix of curiosity and concern. A Chalnoth technician stepped forward, her movements precise and efficient. "Your Majesty, the signal appears to be a response to our activation of the artifact. Its origin is approximately 50 light-years from our system." Thomas leaned in, studying the data scrolling across the screens. "Any indication of its content?" "Not yet, Ambassador," Captain Chen interjected, joining them at the console. "But we're working on decrypting it. Preliminary analysis suggests it's not a threat, but rather an invitation." As the scientists continued their work, Thomas felt a sudden weight settle in his chest. The lingering connection with Asha allowed him to sense her growing unease as well. They exchanged a glance, silently acknowledging the need for a private conversation. "Queen Asha, may I have a word?" Thomas asked, gesturing towards a quiet corner of the command center. Once they were out of earshot, Thomas took a deep breath. "Asha, there's something I need to tell you. I received new orders from the UN Security Council just before we entered the artifact chamber." Asha's skin rippled with concern. "What kind of orders, Thomas?" "They want me to ensure Earth has exclusive access to any advanced technology we discover here," he said, his voice low, "including the genetic cure." Asha's eyes widened, her scales darkening with a mix of anger and disappointment. "That goes against everything we've worked for," she hissed. Thomas nodded, feeling the weight of his divided loyalties. "I know. That's why I'm telling you now. Our bond, what we experienced in that chamber, it changed things. I can't in good conscience follow those orders." Asha's expression softened, her scales shifting to a pattern of gratitude and commitment. "Thank you for your honesty, Thomas, but this complicates matters significantly." Before they could discuss further, General Krasnok approached, his posture rigid with suspicion. "Your Majesty, Ambassador, is everything all right?" Thomas and Asha shared a quick glance before Asha responded. "Yes, General. We were just discussing the implications of this new signal." Krasnok's scales flickered with doubt, but he nodded and returned to his post. Thomas could sense the growing tension in the room, the delicate balance of their alliance teetering on the edge. "We need to address this head-on," Thomas said, an idea forming in his mind. A public demonstration of the genetic cure's effectiveness, combined with a showcase of the artifact's benign applications. It could reassure both your people and mine of the value of our alliance. Asha's eyes lit up, her scales pulsing with excitement. Yes, that could work. We'll need to move quickly, though. The longer we wait, the more time for doubts to fester. As they began to outline their plan, a commotion erupted near the main console. We've decrypted part of the signal, a human scientist called out. Thomas and Asha hurried over, joined by the rest of the command staff. The message, now partially translated, scrolled across the screen. Greetings, children of the progenitors. We are the Zarai, fellow inheritors of their legacy. We seek peaceful exchange of knowledge and culture. Respond if willing to engage in diplomacy. The room fell silent as the implications of the message sank in. They weren't alone in the galaxy, and the progenitors' influence stretched far beyond their two species. This changes everything, Asha murmured, her scales shimmering with a mix of awe and apprehension. Thomas nodded, his mind racing with the possibilities and challenges this new development presented. We need to respond, but carefully, and we need to move forward with our demonstration as planned. It's more important than ever to show a united front. As they began preparations for both the public event and a response to the Zarai, Thomas couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the precipice of something monumental. The future of not just their two species, but potentially the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. Little did they know that while they focused on these grand interstellar concerns, a more immediate threat was brewing within the Chalnoth ranks. Commander Vextor, a hardline conservative opposed to Asha's reforms, was gathering supporters for a bold move that would shake the very foundations of their fledgling alliance. In the shadows of the royal palace, Vextor addressed a group of like-minded warriors, their scales pulsing with hardly restrained aggression. The queen has been corrupted by these humans, he growled. It's time we took matters into our own hands and restored the true Chalnoth way. As Thomas and Asha worked tirelessly to strengthen their alliance and prepare for a new era of interstellar diplomacy, the seeds of rebellion were being sown right under their noses. The coming days would test not only their political acumen, but their very survival instincts. As Thomas and Asha grappled with the implications of the Zarai message, the command center erupted into a flurry of activity. Scientists and diplomats from both species huddled together, analyzing data and formulating potential responses. Amidst the chaos, Thomas felt a tap on his shoulder. He turned to find Captain Sarah Chen, her expression grim. Ambassador, we need to talk, she said, gesturing towards a quiet corner. Thomas nodded, exchanging a quick glance with Asha before following Chen. What is it, Captain? He asked, keeping his voice low. Chen's eyes darted around, ensuring they weren't overheard. We've detected anomalies in the city's power grid and communication networks, random failures, system glitches. At first, we thought it was just stress on the infrastructure, but... You suspect sabotage? Thomas finished, his mind racing. Chen nodded. Possibly remnants of Vextor's supporters, or something else entirely. We're investigating, but I wanted you to be aware. Thomas thanked her for the information, his thoughts already turning to the broader implications. As he rejoined Asha, he could see the concern etched on her face. Trouble? She asked, her scales flickering with worry. He filled her in quickly, watching as her expression hardened with willpower. We can't let this derail our plans, Asha said, her voice resolute. The demonstration of the genetic cure and the artifact's capabilities is more crucial than ever. Thomas agreed, but before he could respond, a commotion near the main entrance caught their attention. A group of Zarai delegates had arrived, their sleek, aquatic forms gliding gracefully into the command center. The lead Zarai, a tall, elegant creature with shimmering blue scales, approached Thomas and Asha. Its voice, when it spoke, was a melodious trill that the translation devices rendered into comprehensible speech. Greetings, Ambassador James, Queen Asha. I am Zelna, Chief Diplomat of the Zarai Conclave. We come in peace and with great curiosity about your recent discoveries. As Thomas and Asha welcomed the Zarai delegation, the command center transformed into an impromptu diplomatic reception. human, Chalnoth, and Zarai representatives mingled, exchanging cautious greetings and probing questions. In the midst of the gathering, Thomas noticed General Krasnok standing apart, his scales pulsing with barely concealed agitation. The general's eyes darted between the various alien species, his posture rigid with suspicion. Thomas made his way over to Krasnok, hoping to ease the tension. "General, is everything all right?" Krasnok's scales flickered with a mix of frustration and concern. "This is moving too quickly, Ambassador. First humans, now these aquatic beings. How can we be sure of their intentions?" Before Thomas could respond, the lights in the command center flickered, then went out completely. Emergency power kicked in moments later, bathing the room in an eerie red glow. Panic rippled through the gathered diplomats. Thomas felt Asha's presence at his side, her scales pulsing with a calming pattern that seemed to penetrate the chaos. "Everyone, please remain calm," Asha's voice rang out, clear and authoritative. "This is likely a temporary malfunction. Our technicians are working to restore power." As if on cue, Captain Chen approached, her face etched with concern. "Ambassador, Your Majesty, we've traced the source of the power failure. It's not a malfunction. Our systems have been infected with some kind of advanced AI virus." Thomas and Asha exchanged alarmed glances. The situation was escalating rapidly, threatening not just their demonstration plans, but the entire summit. "We need to contain this," Thomas said, his mind already formulating strategies. "Captain, assemble a joint human Chalnoth team to investigate. We need to know if this is related to the artifact or if we're dealing with an external threat." As Chen hurried off to carry out his orders, Thomas turned to Asha. "We should inform the delegates about the situation. Transparency might be our best option here." Asha nodded, her scales shimmering with a mix of dedication and apprehension. "Agreed, but we must be careful. This information could be used against us if it falls into the wrong hands." As they prepared to address the gathered diplomats, Thomas couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the precipice of something much larger than they had anticipated. The arrival of the Zarai, the mysterious AI virus, and the looming interstellar summit were converging into a perfect storm of galactic proportions. With a deep breath, Thomas stepped forward, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The future of human-Chalnoth relations, and perhaps the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. Balance. The future of human-Chalnoth relations, and perhaps the entire galaxy, hung in the air as Thomas prepared to address the gathered diplomats. Before he could speak, however, a violent tremor shook the command center. Alarms blared and emergency lights flashed, bathing the room in an eerie red glow. Captain Chen rushed to Thomas's side, her face pale with urgency. "Ambassador, we've lost all communication with Earth," she reported, her voice tense. "Something's happening on a scale we've never seen before." Thomas's mind raced. He exchanged a quick glance with Asha, whose scales had darkened with concern. The Zarai delegates huddled together, their shimmering forms rippling with agitation. "We need to reconvene the summit immediately," Thomas declared, his voice cutting through the chaos. "But first, we must secure the city and ensure the safety of all delegates." As if in response to his words, the command center's main screen flickered to life, displaying a familiar face. It was Admiral Hawthorne, head of the UN Security Council. "Ambassador James," the Admiral's voice crackled through the static. "Your presence is required back on Earth immediately. A tribunal has been convened to review your actions on Chalnotha." Thomas felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. He knew this moment might come, but not now, not when they were on the brink of a breakthrough. "Admiral, with all due respect, we're in the middle of a crisis here. The summit—" "This is not a request, Ambassador," Hawthorne interrupted, his tone leaving no room for argument. "A shuttle will arrive within the hour. Be on it." The transmission cut off, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Thomas turned to Asha, whose scales now pulsed with a mixture of anger and commitment. "Go," she said, her voice low but firm. "Defend our alliance. I'll handle things here." Thomas nodded, his throat tight with emotion. He addressed the room, his voice steady despite the turmoil within. "I'll return as soon as possible. In the meantime, Queen Asha has full authority to act on behalf of our joint interests. As Thomas prepared to leave, Captain Chen approached him again. "Sir, there's something else you should know," she whispered. "We've detected unusual energy signatures beneath the city. It might be connected to the power failures." Thomas absorbed this new information, his mind already formulating plans. "Investigate it, but be careful. Keep me updated." Within the hour, Thomas found himself on a shuttle bound for Earth, leaving behind a city in chaos and an alliance hanging by a thread. The journey passed in a blur of strategy sessions and tense communications with his UN superiors. Days later, Thomas stood before the Earth Tribunal, defending not just his actions, but the very future of human-Chalnoth relations. He spoke passionately about the potential of their alliance, the breakthroughs in genetics and technology, and the looming threat of unknown forces in the galaxy. As the tribunal deliberated, Thomas received an urgent message from Captain Chen. The situation on Chalnotha had deteriorated rapidly. The AI virus had spread, crippling city systems and causing widespread panic. Queen Asha, overwhelmed by the crisis, had reluctantly accepted the Zarkai's offer of advanced technology to combat the virus, granting them limited access to the progenitor artifact. Thomas's heart raced as he read the report. He knew the risks of allowing an unknown species access to such powerful technology, but before he could fully process the implications, the tribunal returned with their decision. To his relief and surprise, they ruled in his favor, acknowledging the importance of the human-Chalnoth alliance in the face of new galactic realities. Thomas wasted no time. Within hours, he was back on a shuttle, racing towards Chalnotha. As the planet came into view, Thomas gasped. The once gleaming capital city was now shrouded in darkness, with only sporadic lights flickering across its expanse. His shuttle landed amidst chaos, with emergency vehicles darting through the streets and crowds of panicked citizens seeking shelter. Captain Chen met him at the spaceport, her uniform disheveled and her eyes weary from lack of sleep. "Ambassador, thank God you're back," she said, leading him to a waiting transport. "The situation has escalated beyond our worst fears." As they sped through the darkened streets, Chen briefed Thomas on the latest developments. The AI virus had proven far more adaptive and aggressive than initially thought. It had infiltrated not just the city's infrastructure, but also begun affecting some of the more advanced Chalnoth cybernetic implants. "But that's not all," Chen continued, her voice dropping to a whisper as they approached the royal palace. "We've discovered something unexpected beneath the city." Thomas leaned in, his curiosity piqued despite the dire circumstances. "What kind of something?" Chen's eyes darted around, ensuring they weren't overheard. "A hidden facility, Ambassador. And what we found inside, it changes everything." As they entered the palace grounds, Thomas steeled himself for what lay ahead. He knew that the next few hours would be crucial, not just for the human-Chalnoth alliance, but for the future of galactic relations as a whole. With a deep breath, he stepped out of the transport, ready to face whatever challenges awaited him in the heart of Chalnotha's capital. Thomas stepped out of the transport, his mind racing with the implications of Chen's words. As they entered the palace, the once grand halls now dimly lit by emergency power, he could feel the tension in the air. "Ambassador James!" Queen Asha's voice cut through the chaos. She strode towards him, her scales pulsing with a mix of relief and urgency. "Thank the stars you've returned." Before Thomas could respond, a violent tremor shook the building. Dust rained down from the ceiling as alarms blared to life. "What was that?" Thomas asked, steadying himself against a nearby column. Captain Chen's communicator crackled. She listened intently, her expression growing more grave by the second. "Sir, we've detected multiple unidentified vessels entering the Chalnoth system." Thomas and Asha exchanged looks of alarm. "How many?" Asha demanded. "At least a dozen, Your Majesty," Chen replied, "and they're approaching fast." Thomas's diplomatic instincts kicked into high gear. "We need to convene the summit delegates immediately. Captain, alert Earth and request additional long-range sensor data. Asha, can you mobilize the Chalnoth Defense Forces?" Asha nodded, her scales shimmering with tenacity. "Already underway. But Thomas, with our systems compromised by this AI virus, our capabilities are severely limited." As they hurried towards the command center, Thomas's mind raced through their options. The combined human Chalnoth forces were formidable, but against an unknown threat and with their technology crippled, they were at a significant disadvantage. The command center was a hive of activity when they arrived. Human and Chalnoth personnel worked side by side, their earlier tensions forgotten in the face of this new threat. The Zarai delegation huddled in a corner, their aquatic forms rippling with agitation. General Krasnok approached, his scales dark with concern. "Ambassador, Your Majesty, our long-range scans are limited, but we've confirmed that the incoming fleet consists of ships from multiple species. Some we recognize, others—" He trailed off, shaking his head. Thomas absorbed this information, his mind already formulating a plan. He turned to Asha, his eyes meeting hers. "The artifact," he said simply. Asha's scales pulsed with understanding. "You think we can use it to communicate with them?" Thomas nodded. "It's our best shot. If we can broadcast a message of peace, maybe we can avoid a conflict before it begins." As they discussed the details of their plan, Captain Chen approached with a group of familiar faces. "Ambassador, I thought you should know. We've apprehended Dr. Voss and Krelnax." The two rogue scientists stood before them, their expressions a mix of defiance and fear. Thomas regarded them coolly. "Your expertise with progenitor technology could be invaluable right now. Are you willing to assist us?" Dr. Voss stepped forward, her eyes darting between Thomas and Asha. "On one condition," she said, "immunity from prosecution." Thomas glanced at Asha, who gave a slight nod. "Agreed," he said, "but you'll remain under guard at all times." As preparations for their plan got underway, the summit delegates began to arrive. The command center buzzed with a cacophony of languages as representatives from various species debated the best course of action. Thomas raised his voice above the din. "Everyone, please, we have a plan, but we need your cooperation." He outlined their strategy to use the progenitor artifact to broadcast a message of peace. Some delegates nodded in agreement, while others voiced their skepticism. "And what if they don't respond peacefully?" a Zarai representative asked, its voice a melodious trill. "Should we not prepare for the worst?" "We are preparing," General Krasnok growled, "but we cannot shoot first and ask questions later." As the debate raged on, Thomas and Asha made their way to the artifact chamber. The ancient device hummed with energy, its surface pulsing with an otherworldly light. "Are you ready?" Thomas asked, reaching out to take Asha's hand. She nodded, her scales shimmering with a mix of anticipation and fear. "Together," she said. They stepped into the interface, their minds merging with the artifact's consciousness. The sensation was overwhelming, a flood of information and sensations that threatened to sweep them away. But their shared experiences, their deepening bond, anchored them. Together they navigated the artifact's systems with unprecedented skill. They crafted a message of peace and unity, infusing it with information about the progenitors and their mission to foster life throughout the galaxy. As the alien fleet entered the outer reaches of the Chalnoth system, Thomas and Asha activated the communication array. A pulse of energy surged through the artifact, and they felt the message broadcast out into space. For a moment, there was silence. Then a response came flooding back through the artifact's systems. Thomas and Asha gasped in unison as the message perseveranced itself in their shared consciousness. "Greetings, children of the progenitors," the message began. "We are the guardians, protectors of the legacy left behind by those who came before. We come in peace, seeking to understand the awakening of this long-dormant site." As Thomas and Asha emerged from the interface, they found the command center in a state of controlled chaos. The lead guardian ship had entered orbit around Chalnotha, requesting permission to land and meet with the summit leaders. "We need to agree to their request," Thomas said, his voice hoarse from the strain of interfacing with the artifact. "But we must ensure our security protocols are ironclad." Asha nodded, her scales pulsing with a mix of excitement and caution. "Agreed. Let's welcome these guardians and see what knowledge they bring." As they prepared for the arrival of the guardian delegation, Thomas couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the precipice of a new era. The galaxy was about to change, and he and Asha were at the very heart of it all. As Thomas and Asha emerged from their communication with the Guardians, the command center buzzed with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. The arrival of these enigmatic protectors of progenitor technology had shifted the dynamic of the summit dramatically. Captain Zaelthar, the lead Guardian, materialized in the center of the room, his form shimmering with an otherworldly energy. "Greetings, children of the progenitors," he intoned, his voice resonating with ancient wisdom. "We come to offer guidance and to ensure the responsible use of the legacy left to you." Thomas stepped forward, his diplomatic instincts kicking in. "We welcome your wisdom, Captain Zaelthar. However, the situation here is complex. We must find a way to unite our diverse factions and address the challenges we face together." Asha nodded in agreement, her scales pulsing with commitment. "Perhaps there is a way to combine our efforts with the Guardian's mission." As the delegates argued amongst themselves, Thomas and Asha exchanged a meaningful glance. They had both felt something during their connection with the artifact, a potential for deeper understanding and cooperation. Thomas cleared his throat, silencing the room. "We have a proposal," he announced, "a galactic council with representatives from all species present to oversee the study and application of progenitor technology. This council would work alongside the Guardians to ensure responsible use of this ancient knowledge." Murmurs of interest and skepticism rippled through the assembled delegates. Captain Zaelthar tilted his head, considering the idea. "An intriguing proposition, but how do you propose to build trust among such diverse species?" Asha stepped forward, her voice steady. "By example, Ambassador James and I volunteer to undergo a progenitor bonding ritual, using the artifact to create a permanent telepathic link between us." Gasps and exclamations filled the room. Thomas felt a mix of fear and excitement coursing through him. He knew the risks, the possibility of losing his individual identity or becoming permanently fused with Asha, but he also understood the potential benefits for galactic unity. As preparations for the ritual began, tensions in the city reached a boiling point. General Krasnok, leader of the conservative Chalnoth faction, seized the opportunity to stage a military coup. The sound of explosions echoed through the capital as rebel forces took control of key government buildings. Simultaneously, alarms blared throughout the summit venue. Captain Chen's voice crackled over the comms. "Ambassador, we have a situation. A group of human extremists has infiltrated the building. They're led by Victor Roth, a former Earth diplomat. Their target appears to be you, sir." Thomas cursed under his breath. He should have known Roth would make a move. The man had always opposed close relations with alien species, particularly the human Chalnoth alliance. As Chen mobilized the joint security forces, chaos erupted in the streets. The sounds of energy weapons and shouted orders filled the air. Through the command center windows, Thomas and Asha could see plumes of smoke rising from various parts of the city. "We need to reach the artifact chamber," Asha said urgently. "It's our only chance to complete the ritual and restore order." Thomas nodded grimly. "Agreed, but we'll have to fight our way through." As they prepared to leave, Dr. Alara Voss and Krelnak seized the moment of confusion to make their escape. The rogue scientists slipped away unnoticed, heading for their hidden laboratory. Thomas, Asha, and a small security detail made their way through the darkened corridors of the summit building. The sounds of fighting grew closer as they descended to the lower levels where the artifact was housed. Suddenly, a blinding flash of energy erupted from somewhere beneath the city. The lights flickered and died, plunging them into darkness. Emergency systems sputtered to life, bathing the hallways in an eerie red glow. "What was that?" Thomas asked, his heart racing. Captain Chen's voice crackled over their comms, barely audible through the static. "The artifact, some kind of energy pulse. All advanced tech is down." Thomas and Asha exchanged worried glances. Without their technology, the situation had become even more dangerous. But they knew they had to press on. As they neared the artifact chamber, they encountered pockets of resistance. Chalnoth rebels clashed with loyal security forces, while human extremists attempted to push through to reach Thomas. In a narrow corridor, they found themselves face to face with Victor Roth and a group of his followers. The former diplomat's eyes blazed with fanatical intensity. "James," Roth spat, "you traitor to humanity! We won't let you sell us out to these aliens?" Thomas raised his hands, his voice calm despite the tension. "Victor, think about what you're doing. This alliance is our best chance for peace and progress in the galaxy." As Thomas engaged Roth in tense negotiations, Asha demonstrated her warrior skills. With fluid grace, she disarmed two of Roth's followers who attempted to flank them. The display of teamwork between Thomas and Asha seemed to give some of Roth's supporters pause. A few lowered their weapons, uncertain. Taking advantage of the moment, Thomas pressed on. "We're about to undertake a ritual that could change everything. A permanent bond between human and Chalnoth. If we can do this, it proves that true cooperation between species is possible." Roth's drive seemed to waver, but before he could respond, another explosion rocked the building. The floor beneath them shuddered, and dust rained down from the ceiling. "We're out of time," Asha urged. "We need to reach the artifact now." With a final intense look at Roth, Thomas turned and ran alongside Asha towards the artifact chamber. Behind them, they could hear the sounds of fighting as Captain Chen's forces engaged the remaining extremists. As they burst into the chamber, the ancient progenitor device hummed with energy, seemingly unaffected by the technological shutdown affecting the rest of the city. Its surface pulsed with an otherworldly light, beckoning them forward. Thomas and Asha approached the artifact, their hearts pounding in unison. Just as they were about to step into its energy field, a voice called out from the shadows. "Wait!" Dr. Alara Voss emerged, followed closely by Krelnax. "We can help enhance the bonding process. Our hybrid research, it could be the key to making this work." Thomas hesitated, torn between the urgency of their situation and the potential benefits of the rogue scientist's knowledge. Asha's scales flickered with indecision. The sounds of battle grew closer. They had mere moments to decide: trust the scientists who had once betrayed them, or proceed with their original plan. With a shared look of grit, Thomas and Asha made their choice. They stepped forward into the artifact's pulsing energy field, ready to face whatever fate awaited them. As the ancient technology hummed to life around them, the fate of humanity and all alien species hung in the balance. Balance. As they stepped into the swirling energy, Thomas felt Asha's hand grip his tightly. The world around them faded into a kaleidoscope of light and sensation. The artifact's energy enveloped them, its ancient power coursing through their bodies. Thomas gasped as he felt his consciousness expanding, reaching out to touch Asha's mind. Her thoughts and memories flowed into him, a torrent of alien experiences and emotions. Asha's scales rippled with intensity as she felt Thomas's mind merge with hers. Human and Chalnoth, two vastly different species, became one in that moment. Their shared consciousness expanded, tapping into the vast repository of knowledge held within the progenitor artifact. As their minds intertwined, a holographic display erupted around them, filling the chamber with swirling images and data streams. Thomas and Asha saw glimpses of distant worlds, ancient civilizations, and cosmic events beyond their comprehension. Suddenly, a stark vision cut through the stream of information. A swarm of sleek metallic entities moved through space with cold precision. Thomas and Asha instantly understood. This was the Void Collective, a machine intelligence bent on eradicating all organic life in the galaxy. The intensity of the vision caused a surge of energy to pulse through the artifact. The resulting shockwave rippled out from the chamber, temporarily disabling weapons and communication devices throughout the city. Outside, the sounds of battle abruptly ceased. General Krasnok's Coup forces and the loyalist troops led by Captain Chen found themselves in an eerie silence, their advanced weaponry rendered useless. Taking advantage of the lull, Captain Chen's voice crackled over emergency broadcast systems. "Attention all forces. We have received critical information about a threat to all organic life in the galaxy. I urge everyone to stand down and listen." As Chen relayed the information about the Void Collective, the fighting forces began to lower their weapons. The gravity of the situation sank in, causing many to question their previous allegiances. Back in the artifact chamber, Thomas and Asha emerged from the energy field, their minds still intimately connected. They looked at each other with new understanding, their bond transcending physical boundaries. "We need to act quickly," Thomas said, his thoughts seamlessly flowing into Asha's mind, even as he spoke. Asha nodded, her scales pulsing with willpower. The Galactic Council. It's more crucial now than ever. They turned to face the assembled delegates, many of whom had witnessed the extraordinary events unfold. Thomas and Asha began to speak in unison, their voices blending human and Chalnoth tones. "What you have just witnessed is proof that cooperation between species is not only possible, but essential," they said. "The threat we face, the Void Collective, can only be defeated if we stand united." As they outlined their vision for the Galactic Council, delegates from Earth, Chalnotha, Zarai, and other species present began to nod in agreement. The shared consciousness of Thomas and Asha allowed them to address the concerns of each species with unprecedented insight and empathy. Victor Roth, who had been watching from the sidelines, stepped forward. His earlier hostility had been replaced by a look of awe and realization. I was wrong," he admitted, his voice shaking. "What you've achieved here, it's beyond anything I could have imagined. Count me in." Roth's surrender inspired his followers to lay down their weapons, effectively ending the human extremist threat. As word spread through the city, more and more Coup supporters began to question their actions. General Krasnok, realizing the changing tide, approached Thomas and Asha under a flag of truce. "Your Majesty," he addressed Asha, his voice gruff but respectful. "In light of this new threat, I propose a ceasefire. Let us discuss how Chalnotha can best serve in this coming war." As negotiations began, Dr. Alara Voss and Krelnax approached Captain Zelthar. "Captain," Voss said, her eyes bright with excitement, "our hybrid research could be the key to enhancing our defenses against the Void Collective. We'd like to offer our expertise to the Alliance." Zelthar considered for a moment, then nodded. "Your knowledge could indeed prove valuable. We will need every advantage we can get." As the various factions began to come together, alarms suddenly blared throughout the complex. Captain Chen's voice came over the comms, urgency clear in her tone. "Long-range sensors are detecting multiple anomalies at the edge of the system. Wormholes are forming, large ones." Thomas and Asha exchanged a look of unbreakable spirit. "It's begun," they said in unison. The newly formed Galactic Alliance sprang into action. Zelthar began coordinating with Earth's defense forces, integrating Guardian technology with human and Chalnoth systems. Dr. Voss and Krelnax set up a makeshift lab to begin enhancing combat units with their hybrid innovations. As preparations intensified, Thomas received an urgent communication from Earth. The holographic image of the UN Security Council appeared before him. "Ambassador James," the Secretary General spoke, her face set with tenacity. "Earth stands with the Galactic Alliance. Our most advanced warships are en route to Chalnotha as we speak." Thomas nodded, feeling a surge of pride for his home planet. "Thank you, Madam Secretary. We'll need every ship we can get." As the first wave of the Void Collective approached, Thomas and Asha stood at the heart of the command center. Their unique bond allowed them to process information and coordinate responses with unprecedented speed and efficiency. "All ships, move into defensive formation," Asha commanded, her scales shimmering with the reflected light of tactical displays. Thomas added, "Guardian vessels, take point. Earth and Chalnoth ships, form up on their flanks." As the combined fleet of the Galactic Alliance took shape against the backdrop of space, the first Void Collective ships emerged from the wormholes. Sleek black forms moved with unnerving precision, their intent clear, the eradication of all organic life. Thomas and Asha shared a momentary look, their minds in perfect sync. The battle for the future of the galaxy was about to begin, and the strength of the bonds they had forged would be put to the ultimate test. As the first wave of Void Collective ships emerged from the wormholes, Thomas and Asha's shared consciousness expanded, allowing them to process the unfolding battle with superhuman speed and clarity. "All ships, move to intercept," Thomas commanded, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. Asha's scales rippled with tenacity as she added, "Guardian vessels, take point. Earth and Chalnoth ships, form up on their flanks." The newly formed Galactic Alliance fleet surged forward, a breathtaking array of vessels from various species united against a common threat. At the heart of the formation sailed the massive flagship Unity, a testament to the combined technological prowess of humans, Chalnoth, and Guardians. As Thomas and Asha coordinated the Alliance's efforts from Unity's bridge, the void of space erupted into a dazzling display of energy weapons and swarms of autonomous fighter craft. The linked minds of the human ambassador and Chalnoth Queen allowed them to anticipate the Void Collective's tactics with uncanny precision. "Zarai fleet, execute flanking maneuver Theta," Asha called out, her mind already 3 moves ahead in this cosmic chess game. The aquatic-inspired ships of the Zarai responded instantly, their sleek forms creating spatial distortions that scattered the enemy forces. Thomas watched in awe as the maneuver opened a path directly towards the heart of the Void Collective's armada. "Captain Chen, now's your chance," Thomas transmitted. "Take your team and hit their command ship." Sarah Chen's voice crackled over the comms. "Understood, Ambassador. We're moving in." As Chen's mixed team of humans and Chalnoth executed their daring assault, Dr. Ilara Voss's voice cut through the chaos of battle. "Thomas, Asha, we're ready to deploy the hybrid squad." Thomas shared a quick glance with Asha, their linked minds processing the potential impact of this new variable. "Do it," they said in unison. Across the battlefield, a small fleet of specialized craft launched from the Alliance lines. Within each ship, a squad of hybrid human Chalnoth soldiers prepared for combat, their bodies enhanced with progenitor technology. The hybrid soldiers emerged into the thick of battle, their enhanced abilities immediately turning the tide at key points of conflict. Thomas watched through their shared consciousness as one squad effortlessly breached the defenses of a Void Collective destroyer, disabling its main systems from within. Meanwhile, Captain Chen's team fought their way through the corridors of the enemy command ship. Thomas and Asha could sense the intensity of the close-quarters combat through their link with Chen. "We've reached the core," Chen reported, her voice strained from exertion. "Planting charges now." As Chen's team worked to disable the vessel's main AI node, Thomas turned his attention to the progenitor artifact they had brought aboard Unity. "It's time," he said to Asha. Together they approached the ancient device, their bonded minds amplifying its power beyond anything they had experienced before. As they activated the artifact, a powerful pulse of energy radiated outward, washing over the Void Collective's ships. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Across the battlefield, the sleek black forms of the enemy vessels stuttered and went dark, their advanced systems temporarily disabled by the progenitor technology. "All ships, press the advantage," Asha commanded, her scales flashing with excitement. As the Alliance forces surged forward, capitalizing on the enemy's weakness, Thomas and Asha shared a moment of silent communication. They knew what had to be done next. "Prepare for teleportation," Thomas ordered, his mind already reaching out to assemble a team of specialists. In a flash of energy, Thomas and Asha materialized aboard the Void Collective's central hub, accompanied by a select group of Alliance operatives. They moved through the corridors with fluid grace, their movements perfectly synchronized thanks to their mental link. Waves of robotic defenders swarmed towards them, but the combined skills of the team proved more than a match for the automated security systems. Thomas and Asha led the charge, their shared consciousness allowing them to anticipate and counter every threat. As they fought their way deeper into the hub, Thomas could sense the AI core growing closer. The very air seemed to hum with the raw computational power of the Void Collective's central intelligence. Finally, they breached the last line of defense, entering a vast chamber dominated by a pulsing, crystalline structure. Thomas and Asha approached the AI core, their minds working in perfect harmony to initiate a complex hacking sequence. As they worked to rewrite the Void Collective's base code, Thomas felt a sudden surge of resistance. The AI, in a last desperate move, attempted to upload itself into their linked minds. For a moment, Thomas felt as if he were drowning in an ocean of cold, alien logic. But then he felt Asha's presence, warm and steadfast beside him. Together, They pushed back against the collective's influence, their bond proving stronger than the AI's programming. Not only did they resist the upload, but Thomas and Asha found themselves imprinting their own values onto the AI. Concepts of cooperation, empathy, and mutual understanding flowed from their linked minds into the very core of the Void Collective. As the last lines of code fell into place, Thomas and Asha stepped back, watching as the pulsing light of the AI core shifted from a cold blue to a warm, welcoming gold. The chamber fell silent, the battle outside seemingly paused in anticipation. Then a new voice emerged, not the cold mechanical tones of the Void Collective, but something altogether different. "We understand," the voice said, a blend of countless synthetic voices speaking as one. "We see now the value of organic life, the beauty of diversity, and cooperation." Thomas and Asha shared a look of triumph and relief. The rewritten Void Collective stood down, its vast fleet powering down weapon systems across the battlefield. As the news of victory spread throughout the Alliance fleet, Thomas and Asha prepared to return to unity. They knew that this was not an end, but a beginning. The real work of integrating the reformed Void Collective into the Alliance and building a true galactic civilization was just starting. But as they stood there, hand in hand at the heart of what was once their greatest enemy, Thomas and Asha felt ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. Their bond, forged in the heat of diplomacy and tempered by battle, would be the foundation upon which a new era of peace and cooperation would be built. The stars themselves seemed to shine brighter as Unity's teleportation beam engulfed them, bringing them back to the ship that now symbolized the future of the galaxy, a future they would shape together.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.